This just happened to me less than an hour ago from the time I've started writing this, at about 10:15ish p.m. in eastern PA, Bucks County specifically if you know where that is. This first part of my encounter all happened within a span of maybe 20 seconds. I was driving home after seeing my boyfriend. Don't know if y'all care about this, but FYI, I am a 19-year-old female. I want to be completely honest so y'all know I'm not lying. I hit a dab cartridge once or twice right before this happened, but I have a very high tolerance and no history of weed-induced psychosis/hallucinations. I even doubted myself about what happened until I told my boyfriend when I got home. This drive is about 45 minutes each way, and a drive I do often, like 3 to 4 times a week. I know these roads very well and I'm not easily spooked. I was about 15 minutes into my drive home. It was raining pretty heavily as I was coming down this one highway, and it's pretty dark with only a few street lights here and there. I was pretty much alone on the streets for most of my drive home since it was late and raining. As I was going down this highway at like 60 miles per hour, I suddenly saw this tall, deer-like figure in my headlights about 200 feet from me. I immediately started braking because, from a distance, I thought it was just your typical big buck standing in the middle of the road. Happens all the time in PA as we have no shortage of deer. But as I was approaching closer to this deer, I see that it's freakishly tall and very slender. It almost looked like someone took an image of a deer and stretched it out vertically, honestly. I also noticed that my headlights aren't lighting this thing up. Not even my brights. All I see of it is a bold, black silhouette, right there, in the middle of the road, unmoving. Because all I see is the silhouette, I can't tell if it's standing on 4 legs or 2, but the height and stretched-out quality of its appearance has me thinking it was 2. I was struggling to brake fast enough to avoid this deer without spinning out on the wet roads, but I eventually slowed down, and as I get slower and closer to this thing, it starts going fuzzy. I squint. I turn my wipers on faster. It's still fuzzy. As I came to a full stop, it suddenly just disappeared. Completely vanished into thin air. So now I'm stopped in the middle of the road on this empty highway thinking I'm going insane because this roughly 12-foot tall figure that I know I saw just isn't there anymore? It didn't jump out of the way, it didn't run, it just vanished. I shake off the spooks, and I hit the gas again, trying to convince myself that I'm going crazy because the alternative was too scary to think about. A few minutes down the road I see something else. This time a lot smaller, closer to the size of your average deer. But it definitely wasn't a deer or any animal that is widely accepted as real because it just suddenly showed up in front of my car. Like it wasn't on the left side of the road at all until it was in front of my car, running across the road. I should have hit it. It was right in front of me. With the speed I was going there was no way that it would have made it across the street in time since it was maybe 5 feet from my car when it first appeared. I didn't even get a chance to brace myself for impact with how close it was. But nothing happened. I didn't hit anything. Not even a rock under my tire. At this point I'm convinced that I've gone certifiably insane. I check my rear view mirrors to see if there even was a deer, but it was too dark to tell. The rest of the way home I drove as slowly as I safely could, just in case I saw something again. Alas, I made it home without another incident. I don't know what exactly I saw. I don't know why. If it was a Wendigo, it didn't hurt me since everything I know about Wendigo points to them being malevolent beings. I'm just freaked out I guess and wanted to share my story. If anyone has a better identification for whatever this thing was, let me know. For now, I think I'm gonna get myself a dash cam. Pennsylvania roads are fucking spooky. I can't stop thinking about this. I saw an actual deer on my way home from work today and was instantly paralyzed in fear. It felt like it was taunting me. I don't know how to explain it. I could feel its eyes burning on my skin.
Hello. A little backstory for me to explain what I believe is a possible skinwalker encounter about a year and a half ago. I'm 27M and have lived in Utah my whole life. I used to be a part of the church until I was about 14 because I didn't believe and had questions that seemed to have answers that didn't make sense or had holes in them. The reason I say this is that I have known about skinwalkers and Wendigos from an early age. Being in Utah, we all hear about them and about Skinwalker Ranch. The whole Native American stories just seemed to make sense to me, and I was told that speaking of skinwalkers would put you on a metaphorical list for them to hunt you or something of the sorts. Hope it's not true. Anyways, as an 18-year-old, I started to date a girl whose family was Native American. I think she was part Shoshone. I can't remember. Well, after a year or two of dating her, I got to visit the res where her tribe was from in Pocatello, Idaho. Her grandfather was full-blood NA. He was a top guy, chief or something like that. I honestly can't remember. At dinner a few days into the stay, I asked him about Wendigos and Skinwalkers. The dinner table got very quiet real fast. He told me to not bring that subject up during dinner. Later that night he came to our room and told me about them, the history of them, how they came about, etc. He spoke of them in a serious yet cautious, like how a parent warns their child about something and tries to teach/explain of the dangers of something, if the right word for it. After that night, I didn't speak of them, think about them, and tried to avoid conversations about them due to what her grandfather had told me. If he was trying to screw with me cause I'm your typical white guy or whatever, but I totally believe the stories, the history, all of it. Here's the encounter. A couple years down the road, her and I split due to us falling apart. A couple of years after that, I met my wife in 2019. We got married in March 2022 and found out we were pregnant in July of 2022. We were happy and nervous for our lives ahead of us. After about a week or so after finding out, we decided to go camping, seeing it may be one of the few times we had to ourselves before our kid came. So we went up to Affleck Park Campground up by Salt Lake City in the Wasatch Mountains. The campground was empty. We didn't see any other tents or cars. We got all set up, had dinner, talked around the fire, hung out. Well, it was bedtime. We got in the tent, talked some more. Both of us heard what we assumed was just rats or little animals walking around the bushes and trees. We fell asleep after a while. While we slept, I had this dream, or at least I think/hope it was. This dream was that I was asleep in my tent with my wife at that same campground right where I was physically, and there was rustling of bushes and trees and an ominous feeling of dread or fear in the air. There was something circling our tent. Looking at the tent, I could feel it want to be inside the tent with us. The next part, one, remember as if I was awake, watching it happen in real time. This dog/wolf, black as a bottomless pit with sharp yellow eyes, stood over us while we slept, just watching us. Almost like an out-of-body experience. While this black dog/wolf just stood over us while we slept, in the dream, I was awake having a feeling of this unknown beast was standing over us and watching us sleep. I pretended to be asleep by keeping my eyes shut, but I could feel it staring at me as if it knew I was faking being asleep. The dog/wolf just stood over my wife and I, watching us the whole night while I pretend to be asleep in my dream. When I woke the next morning, I remember peeking my eyes open, checking to see if anything was there. Nothing. The tent zipper was all that was closed. I asked my wife if she had a weird dream last night. She said she did, but didn't say much after that regarding dreams. After getting dressed, I packed us up in a hurry, skipping breakfast, and left. A year and a half later, I still remember the feeling of the dog/wolf with its yellow eyes staring at me as if it knew my conscious self was aware of what was happening. At work last week, a coworker brought up the subject of skinwalkers and Wendigos. At the sound of the subject, those feelings of dread, fear, and helplessness entered my body and I felt my hairs raise. Being a construction worker for a little over 5 years, I wouldn't say I'm badass at all, but I'm used to uncomfortable situations. But I became scared looking for a way out. I could just see those eyes as if they were in front of me. Would this be considered an encounter? If not, totally understand. I just remember being taught that skinwalkers can enter one's mind through dreams. So sorry for the long post, I just have felt a need to get this out there. I live in a kind of rural part of Utah now. I will get up in the middle of the night about once every week or 2 weeks or so and look out the window to check the field across from my 3rd-story condo. Just look for anything not natural. Am I crazy for letting a dream get to me or not? Thanks.
This happened when I was 7 years old. I'm sharing because my older brother reminded me of it, now that I'm 24, and now I can't get it out of my head. This was very traumatic for me because after this event, a bunch of other things started to happen. This is how it started. Growing up and now, I live in a haunted state, and lived 5 miles away from the most victorious haunted forest. My mom used to tell my brothers and I about what she would hear walking by the forest, the murders that happen, and about how she used to see pukwudgies. My older brother, 11 at the time, let's call him D, and I, 7F, were watching TV in the living room. It was dark outside, must have been a new moon. If you were sitting on the couch and looked to your right, you would see the glass sliding door, which viewed the backyard. Mind you, it was an acre lawn and tall trees line the perimeter. I was tired and decided to get my ritual glass of milk before bed, when I stood up and saw what was glaring at me through the glass door. It was tall, taller than the fucking door. It was skinny in the torso, but its chest was broad. It was white, with tall ears. I want to say it looked like the white version of Donnie Darko. I was about 15 feet from the glass door. I froze. It didn't move. It just kept looking at me. It could not have been anyone else because we lived in the middle of the woods. I start calling for my brother's name, but Dee wasn't answering me. I started to get louder, now calling for my mom. Her room was on the other side of the couch, so she was there in a heartbeat. She looked at the back door, looked at Dee, then told me to just sit back down. I couldn't understand why I was the only one freaking the fuck out. I laid on the couch facing away from the glass door. Dee puts a blanket on me and we both fell asleep on the couch. Well, 2021, Dee calls me from jail. He's been in and out since I was 13. This is how the conversation went. Dee, hey, can I ask you something? Me, what's up? Dee, do you remember that night? Me, what night? Dee, that night where you were freaking out. We were young. Remember that tall scary looking shit that was at the back door? Me, asterisk, I had a flashback of that night, asterisk. Dee, look, I had a dream about it last night, and I wanted to tell you that I saw it too. I was too scared to do anything. Mom saw it also. The convo ended because he only had so much time on the phone. I felt relief, that I knew I wasn't just having a schizophrenic hallucination episode, but my body went numb from the memory of being so scared. I told my so about it. He's my best friend. My so told me that I came face to face with a Wendigo, and how he wasn't surprised because of the small country town I lived in. When I looked up what a Wendigo was, my heart sank. That's what I saw. Now I think about it every day. It's been a year since I was reminded of it. I believe it still follows me.